Hey guys, Engineer Wannabe here. Today we're going to be finally doing a review of my Omega Speedmaster. This is the 3861 movement with the Heslite crystal. I've been meaning to do this review for some time. Things have been just a little busy with work and I'm really behind on reviews. But yeah, before we get started, I'll do a quick wristwatch check and do a bit of an introduction. So today I am wearing my Omega Planet Ocean. Yeah, I felt it was probably fitting because I'm doing the review of the Speedmaster. But anyway, I've owned this for about 3 months, I want to say, and I feel I'm definitely ready to review it. This is not my first Speedmaster. I've had the FOIS, and I've also had the Speedy Racing. This is my first Speedy Professional. I felt like the previous Speedy Professionals were a bit too large. In this one, I think just snuck in under that threshold where I felt this was really nice to wear. So yeah, this is it. This is the review. So let's flip the camera and get into it. Okay guys, so let's start as usual with the dimensions of this watch. So the diameter of this watch is 42 millimeters. It is approximately 14 millimeters thick, so a little under that. The lug width is 20 millimeters, and the cool dimension here, the lug to lug, is 46.5. I wanted to put that decimal in there just because they've shaved a little bit of every dimension. So I'm super impressed with this spec sheet. It is a beautiful watch, and yeah, all the refinements they've done on this watch have made it a very, very wearable watch. I'll mention the weight of this watch as well because it's quite light. So this, again, just a reminder, this is the Heslite version. The weight of the watch on the bracelet when it's sized for my 6.25-inch wrist is 124 grams. And without the bracelet, so just the watch head, is 70 grams. So really nice weight as well, very comfortable. And you know, normally I'd move on to the case and the finishing right now, but let's talk about the bracelet because we just mentioned that. The bracelet here is an interesting bracelet to say the least. So it is 5 links. And it's got really tiny intermediate links. If you end up getting the sapphire sandwich, those tiny intermediate links will be polished. On this Heslite version, they're brushed, and they are very, very pliable. It feels this bracelet feels like fabric because the links are so small, and they have a curvature on the underside, so a convex curvature on both sides, and so it doesn't really clam up onto your wrist. It's very fluid and it really feels like fabric. It's well done. So the taper is very aggressive. It tapers down from 20 millimeters to 15 millimeters, and the clasp is 15 millimeters as well. It's actually just a little over 15 millimeters, which is interesting because that last link that attaches onto the clasp is actually T-shaped. So you don't see this too often with watch manufacturers. They don't do a T-shaped clasp or a T-shaped link entering into the clasp, but this makes it really, when the micro adjustment is not being used, this makes it really close to the clasp thickness. So there's no jump when it goes from the bracelet onto the clasp. The only issue is if you are using that micro adjustment point, you're going to see a somewhat unsightly T-shaped link if you look at the underside of your wrist. So ideally, you would size this up to fit you with that micro adjustment in, and I would almost even not consider the micro adjustment, which is a bit of a bummer. But yeah, anyway, enough about the bracelet. Let's talk about the finishing here. So this is an asymmetric case. Let's talking about the case. It's an asymmetric case. It's 42 millimeters in diameter, but actually I would say it wears a bit smaller than that because the case is asymmetric. So the crown guards and the pusher guards are kind of integrated onto the case, and it's a very interesting. I mean, you've probably seen this. It's a tried and true design element of the Speedmaster, but because of that asymmetric nature of this case, it overall wears smaller than 42. You'd see 42, and it might be daunting if you have a small wrist, but especially on this model, this 42, I'd say wears more like a 40 to a 41, probably closer to a 40. You have the signature twisted lugs, or the lyre lugs from Omega, where this polished bevel gets more exaggerated as it hits the lug until that bevel becomes the lug. It's really a great signature of Omega's and very beautifully done. If you look at in the tops of that, on the underside, on the top of that bevel, the radial brushing is actually kind of rough. I don't know if it's just my model or if it's a growing pain of this a specific model, since it's really new. The tops of those lugs are a little rough. The radial brushing, it's not as smooth and crisp as the rest of the watch. Like if you look at the bracelet, the brushing is satin. It's beautiful, but the top of the lugs are a little rougher than the rest. Very very minor detail there though. Moving on, the case back, of course, has the hippocampus medallion in the center, very nicely embossed, and of course the essay of text that's there about being flight qualified by NASA in 1965 for all manned space missions, the first watch on the moon. I'm glad they don't put that in the dial, but anyway, yeah, that's that. I'm not going to talk too much about the coaxial 3861 movement. I'll show what it sounds like. The winding action is actually beautiful. It's really easy to wind. I know the previous gen was a bit tougher to wind, but this one's much easier. If you take a listen to the winding action. It's really crisp, very, very satisfying to do. Um, but yeah, 3861 movement. The upgrades are very welcome. It's anti-magnetic. It's actually META certified, so this one is actually regulated to be 0 to plus 5 seconds per day, which is great. The previous gen was not like that, and because of that, it's shock resistant, and all those things were probably already tested on the previous gen because it was qualified for manned missions in space. This specific one I have here has the Hesselite crystal, which I find incredibly beautiful and incredibly legible. I held this side by side with the sapphire sandwich, and there was still a milky ring around the extremity of the crystal, but not bad as previous gen, I'm told. But the clarity of the Hesselite has been really nice. I was really nervous about it the first week that I had it, but then I did brush up against quite a few things, and this was a tank. It really isn't as scratch prone as a lot of people might be afraid of it, and I was afraid of that. So this beautiful Hesselite crystal is actually quite durable, so I wouldn't be too concerned. I only had recently I had a slight scratch when my wife's Casio clasp got caught on the crystal, and it left a scrape down the middle. But yeah, it buffed really, really easily. I didn't have to buff hard. Very gentle buffing, and with some, I don't use polywatch, but with a similar polishing compound that I use, it was able to, it looks perfect. And yeah, that was the only scratch in 3 months, that scratch from my wife's Casio clasp. So really, I'm really glad I got the Hesselite. What else? Let's talk about this chronograph. So this is going back a bit to the movement. It's a cam actuated chronograph movement. I actually found this to be more than acceptable. It actually has a very, very crisp actuation. You could have fooled me into thinking this was a column wheel. So it's got a very crisp and satisfying actuation. So I would have thought this was common, and you get the durability of a cam actuated chronograph, so you don't have to, potentially it'll last longer. So, yeah, guys, the main reason I did buy this, I'm not going to go into the history again. This has been reviewed to death. I feel it's a really popular model. This is more of a personal review, but I'm really impressed with this watch. I really love the upgrades that were done. I almost failed to mention the bezel, the dial on this watch. It has a stepped effect on it. The sub registers are sunken in, and there's way more dimensionality than there used to be on the Speedmaster here than there was in the previous generation. At least I feel like there is. The loom is fantastic. The loom on this dial, on this watch, is really good. You could have fooled me into thinking this was a dive watch. It goes and goes and goes. I wear this at night when I'm putting the kids to bed, and I can read it without any problems for many hours in the dark. So really impressed with that, and the legibility is incredible. The legibility of this watch is really good. It's a black dial, erring on the side of gray, and it has stark white painted hands. So all the hands are bright white, like bleach white, and it's so incredibly legible. I'm super happy with it, and yeah, it's when people say everyone's got to have a Speedmaster or has to have owned a Speedmaster at some point, I finally understand, with this one, now that it fits my wrist. Some of you may disagree, but now that this one fits my wrist according to my criteria, I totally get it. I totally get it. I don't know if it's a keeper. I don't think it will be, but it is definitely one of the most enjoyable watches I've owned in a long time. And yeah, I'm grateful to have had this experience with it. But yeah, guys, if you guys have any questions about this watch, let me know. If I missed anything, let me know, and I'd be happy to chat with you in the comments. But guys, I always like to tell you all that you guys are precious. And remember, time is running out. You are precious, and you are really worth it. And I appreciate you. I specifically appreciate you, and I'm grateful. So, guys, take care. Stay safe out there, and I'll catch you in the next video. All right, bye, guys.